It wasn't K-pop that accepted them. It was their fans that saved them. Stray Kids aren't just idols. They've become icons of defiance, of fearless love, of embracing fans without judgment. They challenge stereotypes. They bend fashion norms. They stand with the LGBTQ community when others remain silent. How did 8 boys from a conservative culture become symbols of freedom for queer fans around the world? What made a group of young men from South Korea, a country known for its long-standing traditions, cultural conservatism, and unspoken rules about gender and sexuality, become one of the loudest and clearest voices for love and acceptance for the LGBTQ community in the world? How did 8 boys who auditioned for a survival show in 2017 become global icons whose music, fashion, and presence resonated with millions, not just as entertainers, but as allies, safe havens, and symbols of change? This is the story of Stray Kids. Born under JYP Entertainment, Stray Kids began their journey with uncertainty, like any rookie group. When they debuted, they weren't expected to carry the torch of cultural revolution. They simply pursued their dream, to make music that was powerful, raw, and bold. Their name, Stray Kids, symbolized rebellion and freedom. Kids who rejected the mold, kids who were willing to be different. That spirit of defiance against conformity, against silence, would one day be perfectly aligned with the fight for LGBTQ visibility. Just a few years later, Stray Kids is no longer just a K-pop group. They are Billboard chart toppers, selling out stadiums across continents, performing at the MTV VMAs, dominating the Billboard 200 with 6 consecutive #1 albums, a feat only a handful of artists in the world have achieved. They walk the red carpet at the 2024 Met Gala, wearing Tommy Hilfiger's signature designs that exuded inclusivity. They have become household names not only in Seoul and Tokyo, but also in Los Angeles, Paris, London, and São Paulo. Their fandom, Stay, now has millions of fans, spanning every country and culture, united not just by music, but by something deeper, a sense of belonging. But here's the surprise: Stray Kids didn't stop at music. Unlike many other K-pop groups that remain silent on social issues due to cultural bias, Stray Kids did something groundbreaking. They spoke up, they showed up, they embraced, and perhaps without even meaning to, they became one of the most prominent K-pop groups to support the LGBTQ community through their words, their fashion, their gestures, and their presence. Think about it. A leader like Bang Chan, standing in front of tens of thousands of people in Los Angeles, paused between songs and said, "Everyone is welcome here. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what you identify as, you belong here." For fans who grew up LGBTQ in conservative households, those words were more than just a superficial declaration. They were lifelines. Or Changbin stepping out in Nike Be True sneakers, a small but powerful tribute to pride. Or Lee No quietly donning safety pin earrings, a universal symbol of allyship, telling LGBTQ fans without words, "You're safe with me." Or Felix, who saw a fan holding up a bisexual's Love Felix sign and placing her hand on her heart, smiling with tears in her eyes, acknowledging that love in a gesture more powerful than any words. Even their fashion sense speaks volumes. At the Met Gala, their outfits exuded sophistication, diversity, and individuality, a bold statement in a world where idols are often pressured to conform. At New York Fashion Week 2025, Lee No and Felix debuted as genderless fashion icons, proving that masculinity and femininity can coexist, blend, and shine on the same runway. But the Stray Kids story is about more than just individuals. It's about a group, a collective voice. Together, they've turned their concerts into safe spaces where rainbow flags fly proudly, where queer fans dance fearlessly, where chants of "You belong" resonate above the bass. Their fandom, Stay, reflects this inclusivity. Queer fans, straight fans, fans of all identities, standing together, celebrating music and love without borders. And perhaps this is why Stray Kids are more than just idols. They're symbols of a generation tired of silence. They show that you don't have to be an activist on a podium to make a difference. You can be a guy with a microphone, a smile, a pair of sneakers, or a rainbow filter, and still change the world for someone. So as we embarked on this journey, we asked ourselves, what makes Stray Kids not just entertainers, but allies? How did 8 young men from a culture steeped in conservatism become role models for millions of queer fans around the world? And more importantly, what can we as a society learn from their example? Because this isn't just a story about music. It's also about courage, inclusion, and the undeniable truth that love, in all its forms, deserves to be celebrated. From their meteoric rise on the Billboard charts to their Met Gala triumph, Stray Kids have shown us they're more than just a K-pop group. But if global success explains their influence, it doesn't explain their resonance. What truly makes millions of fans feel seen, loved, and safe isn't just their music, but the lyrics, the values, the courage behind the stage. And no one embodies that more clearly than their leader, Bang Chan. In 2020, Los Angeles became the stage for their District 9 Unlock World Tour. The atmosphere inside the stadium was electric. Tens of thousands of fans shouting in unison, lights cutting through the air, and the deep bass reverberating in every chest. In the middle of the frenzy, Chan paused. Holding the microphone, he gazed across the ocean of fans and spoke words that stretched far beyond the concert walls. Everyone is welcome here. No matter who you are, where you come from, or how you identify, you belong here. It was a simple message, delivered mid-show. But for queer fans, it was seismic. Many had never heard an idol, especially one from South Korea, where LGBTQ+ topics are still taboo, say something so clear, so direct, so affirming. Some cried in the crowd, overwhelmed by the realization that for the first time in this space, their identities were not only accepted, but celebrated. Others later wrote online that the words had saved them, given them the courage to continue living in a world where they often felt invisible. Bang Chan's message wasn't a rehearsed social act. It wasn't a scripted speech from a record label. It was a heartfelt, visceral speech, the words of someone who knows what it's like to be left out and wants to make sure no one in his audience ever has to feel that way. That's what leadership is all about. Not just leading a team to greatness, but leading a fan base that feels like family. And what made the moment all the more powerful was that Chan wasn't alone. Behind him, the rest of Stray Kids, Lino, Changbin, Hyunjin, Han, Felix, Sungmin, Ian, nodded, smiled, raised their hands to the crowd. It wasn't just the voice of one person. It was the voice of 8 united. That unity transformed the stadium into something more than a concert. It became a refuge, a safe space, a place where rainbow flags fly proudly, where queer fans hug each other, where everyone feels, if only for a night, that love has no conditions. Since then, Stray Kids has carried that spirit with them wherever they go. Their concerts are now known as inclusive spaces, where fans of all backgrounds, genders, and sexualities come together under one name, Stay. Online, countless LGBTQ+ fans share how SKZ's music empowers them, how Chan's lyrics play in their heads when they feel scared, and how the group's acceptance allows them to imagine a better future. And in the world of K-pop, where silence on such issues is the norm, this act of openness is nothing short of revolutionary. Even in their fashion, the group reflects Chan's spirit of freedom and acceptance. At the 2024 Met Gala, Stray Kids wore custom Tommy Hilfiger looks, each tailored to celebrate individuality in unity. There were no flashy rainbows or political slogans, but they didn't need to. The act of standing on stage, representing Korea while also showing diversity and boldness, sent a message. We're here, we're different, and that difference is beautiful. When Chan walked with his members that night, he wasn't just leading Stray Kids down one of the most iconic red carpets in the world. He was leading an entire generation into a future where being yourself is celebrated, not suppressed. For many fans, Bang Chan has become more than a leader. He has become a symbol of safety. His late-night live streams often include gentle reminders like, "Don't be too hard on yourself," or "You're not alone." For queer fans, those reminders feel like direct lifelines, especially when paired with his public statement of acceptance. Chan understands that leadership is not about commanding authority, but about giving comfort. It's about ensuring that the most vulnerable feel seen. And here lies the larger truth. When a global figure like Bang Chan speaks, he chips away at the silence that has long suffocated discussions about gender and sexuality in Asia. He shows that tradition and acceptance do not have to be enemies. He shows that a leader can carry both responsibility and empathy, both success and inclusivity. So what lesson do we take from this? That words matter. A single sentence, spoken sincerely, can change someone's life. That leadership is not measured only in trophies or chart records, but in how you make people feel, whether you give them a home in a world that often pushes them out. And now, I want to turn this question to you. Bang Chan stood on a stage in Los Angeles and told the world that everyone belongs. How did those words resonate with you? And as you're watching this video right now, tell us, where are you tuning in from? Drop your country in the comments below. Because just like Stray Kids, we want to remind you, no matter where you are, who you are, or who you love, you belong here too. If Bang Chan's words carved out a safe space for stays, then Changbin's fashion carved out a symbol. He may not be the loudest when it comes to public speeches, but every piece of clothing, every accessory, every silhouette he chooses seems to carry a quiet but powerful message. And in the world of K-pop, where nothing is accidental, those choices matter. One of the most memorable examples was when Changbin was seen wearing the Nike Air Vapor Max Plus True, a sneaker released as part of Nike's Pride Month collection. To most casual observers, it was a pair of stylish kicks. But to queer fans, it was a beacon. The True wasn't just another shoe. It was a declaration of allyship designed specifically to honor the LGBTQ+ community. For Changbin to wear it, on camera, in public, as an idol scrutinized from head to toe, it was his way of saying, "I see you. I stand with you." In K-pop, where every earring, every hairstyle, every stitch of fabric can ignite discussions across fan forums, Changbin's choice did not go unnoticed. Fans took screenshots, shared them online, and for many LGBTQ+ stays, it was a moment of recognition. A small act, yes, but one that echoed louder than any speech. Because sometimes support doesn't arrive in the form of grand declarations. Sometimes it arrives in the form of sneakers. But Changbin's allyship doesn't stop at fashion. As one of the core members of 3RACHA, Stray Kids' in-house production trio with Bang Chan and Han, he has helped craft the very sound of the group. Their music has always been about breaking boxes, refusing to fit into the mold of what K-pop should sound like. Songs like Miro, Thunderous, and God's Menu are not just bangers. They're anthems about identity, about defiance, about daring to be different. To queer fans, those lyrics resonate like a mirror. You don't have to fit into the world's box, you can build your own. During performances, Changbin embodies that same message. He is bold, powerful, and unapologetically himself. When Stray Kids performed Case 143, a love song with gender-neutral lyrics that could be about anyone, Changbin delivered his rap verses with ferocity, while the group's choreography included playful, romantic gestures between male members. For queer fans, it was more than just fan service. It was validation, proof that their love stories deserve a place on the stage too. Even on stage, Stray Kids, as a group, amplified this message through their collective fashion choices. At the 2024 Met Gala, the group wore tailored Tommy Hilfiger suits, classic yet bold, paired with a subtle color palette that evoked inclusivity. At New York Fashion Week 2025, Changbin and his bandmates leaned into bold shapes and genderless designs, creating a ripple across fashion media about K-pop's role in pushing boundaries. Standing next to Felix in unisex outfits or Hunjin in romantic, arty pieces, Changbin's sporty, grounded style became part of the larger picture, a statement that masculinity can be redefined. And perhaps that's what makes Changbin's presence so important. He doesn't shout his support. He embodies that. Through his music, fashion, and performance, he delivers messages that LGBTQ+ fans can hold. Sneakers are never just sneakers. Raps are never just words. Stage moves are never just choreography. They are all coded reminders that at Stray Kids, difference is celebrated, not erased. For young fans struggling with their identity in conservative families or rigid societies, Changbin offers a subtle but essential lesson. You don't have to come out as who you are to be valued. You don't have to fit into expectations to be worthy of respect. Even the smallest act of authenticity can be an act of rebellion and an act of hope. The lesson we can learn from Changbin is that allyship isn't always about speeches or sensational headlines. Sometimes it's the details, a shoe, a lyric, a look that whisper louder than a scream, and enough whispers turn into a roar. The future of LGBTQ+ rights isn't based on laws or marches. It's based on the small, everyday choices we make to be inclusive, to represent, to stand together. When idols like Changbin use fashion as their language and music as their voice, they show us that everyone has the power to normalize acceptance. And in that normalization lies the seed of a world where no one has to explain why they're worthy of love. Not all heroes give grand speeches. Some heroes don't even need to speak. They just raise their eyebrows, put on a tiny piece of jewelry, and suddenly the world listens. Lee Know is that guy. While Bang Chan might give emotional speeches and Felix might shower his fans with rainbow filters and heart gestures, Lee Know operates differently. His method? Quiet, intentional symbolism. Picture this. Lee Know on stage, spotlights piercing the darkness, the crowd roaring. He tilts his head, and there it is, the glint of a safety pin earring. To the uninitiated, it's just an accessory. But to the connoisseur, it's a beacon. The safety pin has a history. After Brexit in the UK and the Trump election in the US, people started wearing safety pins to silently show solidarity with minority communities, including LGBTQ+ people. The message was simple: you're safe with me. Now imagine you're a queer fan in that crowd. You've spent your life deciphering every signal, reading every gesture to figure out where you stand. And here's Lee Know, saying nothing but telling you everything. The earring whispers, "I see you. I stand with you." What makes it even more powerful is Lee Know's personality. He's not the type to burst into tears on stage or pour his heart out in long speeches. He's calm, serious, sometimes even intimidating. So when he chooses to wear a symbol of allyship, it carries weight. Like a strong, quiet person finally cracking a smile, it means the world. For LGBTQ+ fans, that moment of realization is less an accessory and more like a shield. And not just any jewelry. Lee Know has always been a master of saying more with less. In performances like Domino and Case 143, Stray Kids incorporated choreography that blurred the lines of traditional masculinity. The male members danced very close together, their gestures expressing intimacy, and Lee Know delivered it with his signature intensity. No hesitation, no shyness, just trust. For queer fans, it wasn't just dancing, it was recognition. It was an implicit declaration. Love is love, and it belongs on this stage too. But don't think Lee Know is all serious. There's a certain charm to his deadpan humor and sharp wit. Fans often joke that his way of showing affection is to tease you first. That's what makes his quiet support all the more endearing. It's unpretentious, unforced, just Lee Know being Lee Know. Imagine someone who teases you mercilessly and then stands in front of the world with the slogan, "Play with them, you play with me." That's allyship with a little attitude. The group dynamic is important here too. Stray Kids isn't a collection of solo artists. They're a band of brothers. When Chan speaks, when Changbin puts on pride shoes, when Felix waves to a bisexual fan, Lee Know complements it with his quiet rebellion. Together they create layers of support. Words, fashion, gestures, performances. Each member has their own color, and Lee Know's is subtle but memorable. The muted hue that completes the rainbow. For him, fashion is more than just looking good. At New York Fashion Week 2025, Lee Know and Felix made a strong impression with Tommy Hilfiger's genderless designs. While Felix leaned into soft, delicate details, Lee Know brought sharp lines and clear structures. Standing side by side, they look like two halves of the same coin, different energies, but the same message. Individuality is power. Seeing two male K-pop idols take to the Western runway with a style that goes beyond traditional masculine norms and own it, that's an image that fans will remember forever. The lesson here? That synchronicity doesn't have to be shouted. It can be whispered, it can be winked, it can be worn quietly on the earlobe like a safety pin. And sometimes those whispers go further than the loudest slogans. Because they're real, because they're close, because they're lived. So as you watch this film, think about the power of subtlety. Think about how small actions, an accessory, a dance move, a glance, can bring safety to people who have never felt safe. That's what Lee Know teaches us. You don't have to be the loudest person in the room to change lives. Sometimes the most powerful allies are the quietest. Now we'd love to hear from you. Do you see yourself in Lee Know's quiet power? Do you believe that small actions can create big change? And most importantly, where in the world are you watching this video? Leave your country in the comments below. We'd love to hear where this message is going. And if this story of allyship resonates with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. We have more powerful stories coming your way. Your support will help us continue to shine a light on important voices. If Stray Kids were a galaxy, Felix would be its sun, the one whose warmth makes everything a little brighter, a little gentler, a little safer. Fans often describe him as sunshine in human form, but in the LGBTQ+ community, he's so much more. A quiet healer, a beacon of kindness in a world that doesn't always know how to be kind. Think back to that unforgettable moment, a fan holding up a handwritten sign that read, "Bisexuals love Felix." The crowd was buzzing, the music was pumping, but Felix saw it. He paused for a second, put his hand on his heart, smiled a heartbreakingly genuine smile, and nodded. No words, no grand speech, just a gesture. But in that moment, the message resonated louder than any hymn. I see you, I respect you, I accept you. For queer fans in the room, it felt like someone had parted the clouds and let the light in. Felix's strength lies in this paradox. He is delicate but never weak. His voice is deep, a rare deepness for someone with such a soft face. But when he speaks to fans, it's honeyed. He has a rare ability to look directly into the camera or wave to the crowd and somehow make them feel close, as if he were talking to himself. For queer fans who often live in denial or misunderstanding, Felix's acceptance is a balm. And then there's his style. Felix has never conformed to the rules of traditional masculinity. Why should he? Life is too short for boring outfits. Some days he struts out of the airport in an oversized coat and pearl earrings. Other days he appears on stage in a flowing, metallic-hued dress over his trousers. He paints his nails, wears rings on every finger, and experiments with hair colors like an artist with an infinite palette. Never out of place, he pulls off every style with the confidence of someone who understands that identity is fluidity and fashion is freedom. Fans have dubbed him a gender-neutral fashion icon, and it's not hard to see why. Each outfit is a message to LGBTQ+ youth. You don't have to choose between boxes. You don't have to blur yourself to fit in. You can shine in whatever shade you want. And it's not just the clothes. It's the permission. The permission Felix gives anyone watching to live a little stronger, a little freer. Of course, his gentleness doesn't stop at his appearance. Felix is famous for giving out confetti hugs. He'll hold a member tight in his arms when he's feeling a little stressed, rub their backs, whisper encouragement. Even on live streams, he offers comfort through his words. Don't forget that you're loved. I hope you're eating well. Take care of yourself. They may sound simple, almost ordinary, but for those who hear them after a day of struggling with discrimination or hiding their true selves, they can be a lifesaver. Felix also has an uncanny ability to balance gentleness and playfulness. He can tease a member, laugh at the silliest expressions, and then turn around and give you a hug so sincere it'll melt your heart. That contrast, joy and gentleness, is what makes him so appealing. It shows queer fans, especially those who are perceived as too much or too different, that they can be complex, multifaceted, and still completely lovable. It's no surprise that Felix has become a beloved face in the LGBTQ+ community. In a world where masculinity is often equated with toughness, he redefines strength with vulnerability, compassion, and acceptance. He proves that tenderness isn't the absence of strength, it's the presence of it. And maybe that's why so many people are drawn to him. Because he embodies the love the world needs more of. And perhaps that is the core of Felix's legacy, not just as a performer and a fashion icon, but as a human being. He reminds us that true power lies in kindness, and that healing often comes not from grand speeches, but from small, consistent acts of love. However, Felix never shines alone. His gentleness is amplified by the group around him. Stray Kids' greatest strength has always been their unity. 8 voices, 8 personalities, 8 colors blending into a harmonious whole. Bang Chan may be the leader, but each member is a pillar, supporting the safe space their fandom has created. For LGBTQ+ fans, that solidarity is more than entertainment, it's a lifeline. This is the truth they live by. Being different is not a weakness, it's a strength. Being gentle is not a flaw, it's your light. And in a world that can sometimes be too harsh, it's your love, your identity, your presence that makes you beautiful. Stray Kids, through every lyric, every performance, every quiet gesture of solidarity, prove one thing. When you dare to stand together for love, you become invincible. And that's their gift to the LGBTQ+ community. Not just music, not just fashion, but the courage to exist, to be present, to be celebrated. From the very beginning, Stray Kids have carried the spirit of outsiders who refuse to be tamed. They weren't the polished golden boys of K-pop when they started. They were rough around the edges, different, unconventional, stray kids in every sense of the word. And perhaps that is exactly why they became the perfect allies for a community that knows all too well what it means to live outside the lines. The LGBTQ+ community. Across the years, their support has gone beyond words. At NYC Pride, they didn't hide in the shadows. They joined, they celebrated, they embraced. For queer fans who often grew up feeling isolated or erased, watching Stray Kids publicly stand in solidarity was more than representation. It was healing. It told them, you belong here, in this crowd, in this moment, in this world. Yes, they've conquered global stages from Seoul to Paris, from Billboard charts to stadiums packed with screaming fans. But their true legacy is not measured in trophies or magazine covers. It is measured in the tears of a fan who finally feels safe holding hands with someone they love at a concert. It is in the smile of a teenager who paints their nails like Felix because for the first time, they feel it's okay. It is in the relief of someone hearing Bang Chan's words echo in their head on a day they almost gave up. But perhaps the most powerful statement is not what happens on stage or red carpets. It is what happens within their fandom. Stay. Stray Kids concerts are no longer just performances. They are sanctuaries. Fans bring rainbow flags, same-sex couples hold hands openly, and queer youth, who may never feel safe at home or school, dance freely for the first time. The message is clear. This is your space. This is your family. You are not just tolerated here. You are celebrated. That culture doesn't appear by accident. It is shaped by the members' choices, their gestures, their refusal to stay silent. When Bang Chan paused in Los Angeles to tell fans that everyone is welcome, he planted a seed of safety. When Lee No quietly wore a safety pin earring, he nurtured it. When Felix placed his hand on his chest in recognition of bisexual fans, he let it bloom. Together, these actions created a garden where millions of queer fans could finally breathe and grow. It's easy to dismiss pop music as shallow entertainment, but Stray Kids have shown it can be a cultural revolution. Their lyrics speak of struggle and defiance, their performances embody freedom, their fashion breaks rules, and their humanity creates safe havens. They remind us that art is never just art. It is a mirror of the times, a challenge to the status quo and a blueprint for the future. And this future, if Stray Kids have anything to say about it, is one where love has no qualifiers, where gay love, straight love, queer love all dissolve into the same truth. Love is love. Where a kid questioning their identity doesn't have to whisper in shame but can shout in pride. Where allyship is not performative but lived, day by day, in gestures both big and small. So what do we take away from their journey? That visibility matters. That gestures, even subtle ones, can save lives. That when celebrities use their platforms to affirm, protect, and uplift, they change culture itself. And most of all, that respect and protection of LGBTQ+ love isn't just the responsibility of a community, it's the responsibility of us all. For the young people watching this, whether you're a fan of Stray Kids or simply someone searching for belonging, remember this. The greatest act of courage is to live authentically, and the greatest act of love is to protect the right of others to do the same. So here's the lesson, the one that outlives every stage and every spotlight. The greatest act of courage is to live authentically, and the greatest act of love is to defend the right of others to do the same. Stray Kids began as outliers, unsure of where they belonged. Today, they stand as leaders, proving that when you protect love, you protect humanity itself. Respect love, protect love, and never let anyone convince you that any love, gay, straight, queer, trans, is less worthy of celebration. Stray Kids have proven that music is more than just rhythm and sound. It can be refuge, it can be courage, it can be love. Through their voices, their fashion, and their bold choices, they have built a haven where the LGBTQ community is not only accepted, but celebrated. And through this journey, they have left us with an everlasting message. Love in all its forms is precious and worthy of being seen. Thank you for being with us this far, for opening up and believing in a world where love doesn't need to be hidden. Your presence here matters more than you think. But perhaps the most powerful truth is yet to come. The stories that haven't been told, the voices waiting to be heard, the changes we've only just begun to witness. Don't miss out on what's coming. Please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, because together, we're not just watching stories unfold, we're shaping the future of love, equality, and freedom. if Jungkook's biggest secret isn't in his music, but in what he never says out loud. In this video, we dive into his personal world, from hobbies to hidden rumors, including whispers that question everything, even love. What do you think about the silence, the speculation, and the conversation around LGBTQ+ identity in K-pop? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're listening. In the quiet corners of Mandaedong, a young boy was dreaming, not of fame or fortune, but of finding something that would make his heart beat faster. His name was Jungkook. He was the youngest in a family of 4, a curious child with bright eyes and a wild imagination. His older brother was his hero, someone who not only protected him but also fanned the flames of his creativity. His parents, humble and supportive, created a home filled with warmth, music, and the unspoken belief that their youngest son was destined for something greater than they could imagine. The walls of their modest house echoed with encouragement. Not pressure, not perfection, just pure, unconditional love. As a child, Jungkook wasn't chasing microphones or cameras. He was chasing shuttlecocks across dusty courts, obsessed with the speed and elegance of badminton. He practiced until his arms ached, dreaming of gold medals, standing on podiums, and hearing the national anthem play because of him. There was discipline in his step, fire in his eyes. But fate, always unpredictable, had something else waiting. One ordinary evening, while flipping through TV channels, he froze. On the screen was G-Dragon, larger than life, oozing charisma and cool. The energy, the rhythm, the swagger. It shot through Jungkook like electricity. Something clicked. The noise of the shuttlecock faded. The roar of music took its place. That was the moment everything changed. He didn't know how or when, but he knew one thing for certain. He was gonna sing. In 2011, still just a teenager with nothing but talent and courage, Jungkook auditioned for Superstar K2 in Daegu. He stood in front of judges, nerves pulsing through his veins, and gave it everything he had. He didn't make the finals, but that so-called failure turned out to be his launchpad. 7 entertainment companies reached out to him afterward, each seeing the spark he carried. Flashy offers came, and yet he hesitated. He wasn't just looking for fame, he wanted meaning, and he found it, not in a contract but in a person. Kim Namjoon, RM. The quiet genius, the leader in the making, whose words moved him more than any promise could. Jungkook chose Big Hit Entertainment not because it was the biggest, but because it felt right. Because RM was there. That choice, instinctual and sincere, said everything about the kind of artist Jungkook would become. But choosing the right path didn't make the journey easy. Big Hit saw his potential, but Jungkook saw his own gaps. He knew he had the voice, but not yet the moves. So in 2012, he boarded a plane to Los Angeles. Alone, excited, terrified. For months, he trained with world-class choreographers, pushing his body past every limit. There were no cheering fans, no cameras, just sweat, mirrors, and aching muscles. But he didn't stop, he couldn't. Every step, every beat, every bruise was bringing him closer to the dream that had taken root in his heart. He wasn't just learning to dance, he was learning to endure and to grow. That same year, he dipped his toes into the industry. He appeared in Jo Kwon's vibrant music video, I'm the One. Wide-eyed, eager, still new to the spotlight, and danced as a backup for the girl group Glam. These weren't glamorous roles, but they were lessons. He watched everything. The cameras, the rehearsals, the way professionals carried themselves. He was becoming a student of the industry, not just of music. And he was preparing himself, body, mind, and soul, for something much bigger. Then came June 13, 2013, a date etched into the hearts of millions. BTS debuted. 7 boys, 7 stories, 1 dream. They stood on stage, trembling but determined, ready to rewrite the rules of K-pop. Among them stood the youngest, Jungkook. Just 15 years old, a teenager with no idea of the tidal wave he was about to help create. But the moment he stepped forward and sang, the room changed. His voice, pure, powerful, laced with emotion, cut through the noise. He wasn't loud. He didn't need to be. People listened, and they remembered. And so, the boy from Mandedong began the next chapter. Not with fireworks or fanfare, but with quiet determination, sweat on his brow, and a heart that beat in rhythm with his dreams. What started as a flicker in front of a television screen had now become a spotlight, and he was ready to stand in it. Not for the fame, but for the music. From the moment he stepped onto the stage, Jungkook didn't just perform, he transformed. As BTS's youngest member, he carried a weight that many couldn't see, but everyone could feel. He wasn't simply the maknae, he was the heartbeat of a generation. With his silky, effortless voice and magnetic stage presence, Jungkook brought a rare kind of magic. A quiet force. He could sing a line and break your heart. He could look into the camera and make the world pause. Tracks like Begin, My Time, and especially Euphoria became more than just songs. They became soundtracks to people's lives. Begin told the story of a boy stepping into manhood, shaped by the 6 older brothers who guided him through unfamiliar territory. My Time offered a raw, aching glimpse into the whirlwind of fame and the emotional toll of growing up on the world stage. And Euphoria? That wasn't just a hit, it was a feeling. A soaring, dreamlike escape that captured the hearts of millions. For many fans, Jungkook's voice wasn't just music, it was medicine. Soft, soulful, sincere. But what set him apart wasn't just his talent, it was his tireless hunger to grow. While others rested, Jungkook practiced. He didn't just want to be good at what he did, he wanted to master it. Singing, dancing, producing, editing, he pursued every angle of artistry with quiet obsession. Not for applause, but for authenticity. Because beneath the spotlight, Jungkook was always chasing one thing: truth in his craft. In 2022, the world got a taste of what that truth looked like when he joined forces with American pop star Charlie Puth. Their duet, Left and Right, became an instant global sensation, playful, infectious, and irresistibly catchy. For the first time, many international audiences heard Jungkook's voice independent of BTS, and they fell in love. His tone, warm, expressive, and unbelievably smooth, proved that he could stand beside global pop giants and shine just as brightly. But Jungkook wasn't done. Not even close. Later that same year, he made history. Standing alone on one of the biggest stages in the world, the opening ceremony of the FIFA World Cup in Qatar, Jungkook delivered a performance that was nothing short of breathtaking. With Dreamers, he didn't just sing, he soared. Draped in confidence, moving with elegance, he sang of hope, resilience, and the power of belief. His voice echoed across the globe, transcending language and borders. To many watching, this was their first glimpse of Jungkook, and in that moment, he wasn't a K-pop idol. He was a global ambassador of inspiration. Then came 2023, and with it, a new era. Jungkook dropped his first official solo single, 7, and just like that, the world tilted. The track was a sultry summer anthem, breezy, bold, and impossible to ignore. But 7 wasn't just a hit. It was a statement. With every beat it declared, Jungkook wasn't just branching out, he was breaking free. No longer defined by group dynamics or labels, he danced with his own rhythm, flirted with a new persona, and opened a door into a more personal, more playful side of himself. Critics praised its addictive melody. Fans dissected every frame of the music video. TikTok exploded with dance challenges. And yet, amidst the storm of attention, Jungkook stayed centered, humble, kind, as if the boy from Mandedong never really left. Fame hadn't changed him, it had only deepened him. But even as he celebrated success, another chapter quietly waited in the background, one required of all South Korean men: military service. And when that moment arrived, Jungkook didn't seek the spotlight. He didn't orchestrate a tearful farewell tour or make headlines with a dramatic exit. Instead, he wrote a short message to ARMY, simple, sincere, and disappeared into duty, like millions of others before him. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was sacred. Fans around the world replayed his songs, rewatched performances, whispered, "We miss you" into comment sections in concert halls. Some made countdown apps. Others lit candles or wore bracelets with his initials. Because loving Jungkook wasn't just about following a celebrity, it was about holding on to something pure in a world that often isn't. And so they waited. Not just for the return of a star, but for the return of someone who felt like home. When the lights dimmed and the cameras stopped rolling, who was Jungkook? Not the pop sensation, not the global ambassador, not the golden matinee. Just a young man. Thoughtful, quiet, sometimes awkward, often playful, navigating life with the same questions, curiosities, and quirks as the rest of us. The closer you looked, the more you realized his fame was only half the story. The other half, that lived in the quiet details. Jungkook has always been drawn to movement, not just on stage but in life. He loves sports, basketball, soccer, boxing, even archery. There's a thrill he gets from physical challenge, a kind of focus that clears his mind. In competition, he's fiercely driven. But it's not about winning, it's about testing himself, pushing limits, feeling alive. And when he's not sprinting across a court or rehearsing for hours, he's gaming. Video games are one of his escapes. In the virtual world, he isn't the center of attention. He's just another player, immersed, competitive, lost in the flow. He's also deeply artistic. Drawing is one of his secret languages. Sketchbooks filled with abstract designs, gentle portraits, sometimes scrawled with words in English and Korean. It's how he processes things, how he expresses what songs can't say. Art is therapy, silence is healing. And Jungkook, he knows how to sit in silence and create beauty from it. When it comes to food, he's got a famously big appetite. Fans joke about his mukbang-worthy meals, from Korean barbecue to ramen to banana milk. His favorite? Samgyeopsal, grilled pork belly, a Korean staple. There's something comforting about it, something that reminds him of home, of family dinners, of simpler times before fame wrapped itself around him like a second skin. He's also a lover of late-night snacks, and if there's tteokbokki nearby, you'll probably find him first in line. But what truly makes Jungkook feel human in the eyes of his fans isn't the list of hobbies. It's the little habits, the small, oddly endearing things he does without thinking. The way he bites his lip when he's nervous, how he taps his fingers to a beat only he can hear, how he sits cross-legged in waiting rooms, stretches his limbs like a sleepy cat, or covers his mouth when he laughs, as if joy is too precious to release all at once. He claps loudly when something makes him really laugh, like tears in his eyes kind of laugh. He hums unconsciously when he's focused. He leans into people when they talk, nodding slowly, truly listening. And he can't resist soft things. Pillows, plushies, fluffy coats, they bring him instant comfort. Even in photo shoots, if there's something soft in reach, chances are he'll gravitate toward it. He's also a man of paradoxes. He loves fashion, bold, experimental, edgy, yet is often seen in simple white tees and baggy jeans. He has tattoos and piercings that hint at a rebellious spirit, but carries himself with the calmness of an old soul. He's charismatic, yet introverted, gentle, yet driven, fearless on stage, yet afraid of bugs, especially big ones. Butterflies even. They make him flinch, laugh, and run like a child caught in a moment of sudden panic. It's funny, it's real, it's Jungkook. And while he's embraced so many parts of himself, there are things he firmly avoids. He can't handle spicy food, a surprise for many given how central it is to Korean cuisine. He dislikes messiness and chaos. He needs structure, clean surroundings, control over his space. He doesn't like being pushed into things either. Jungkook values freedom, not in a loud, rebellious way, but in the quiet way of someone who knows that growth only comes when you choose it yourself. Still, for all his habits and hobbies, perhaps the most moving part of Jungkook's personality is how deeply he feels. He cries during emotional movies. He gets teary-eyed during concerts. When a fan tells him a story about how BTS helped them through hard times, you can see it in his expression. He's not brushing it off. He carries that. He listens. He absorbs. And it stays with him. His motto? Live with your soul and believe in your dreams. That's not just a lyric or a catchphrase, it's a way of being. Jungkook isn't trying to be perfect. He's trying to be honest. Honest in how he sings, honest in how he connects, honest in how he walks through the world. Flawed, funny, complicated, but real. That's why fans don't just love him, they relate to him. Because beyond the glamour, beyond the stages and spotlights, there's a young man who's still learning, still growing, still finding his place in the world. And that makes him feel a little more like all of us. Jungkook's love life has long been a subject of global fascination. Fans across continents adore him, not just for his talent, but for his quiet vulnerability, his mystery. And in a world obsessed with knowing everything, there's something maddeningly beautiful about someone who refuses to be fully known. From the day he debuted, rumors surrounded him like shadows. Some came quietly, a passing glance, a shared laugh, a hand on the shoulder that lingered a second too long. Others came louder, sharper, fueled by headlines and fan edits. And as BTS grew, so did the speculation. Who does Jungkook love? Has he ever had a girlfriend? Is he hiding something? One of the most persistent and passionately discussed rumors doesn't involve an actress or influencer. It involves another man. Someone standing right beside him on stage. Kim Taehyung, better known as V. Together, they became known as Taekook, a name born from ship culture, but carried by millions with sincerity, hope, and deep emotional investment. For years, fans have pointed to moments that felt undeniably intimate. The eye contact that lasted a heartbeat too long. The whispered conversations behind cameras. The way Jungkook laughed more freely around Taehyung. Or how Taehyung once said, "Jungkook is the person who understands me without words." The timeline of Taekook rumors stretches all the way back to 2014. In the early Bangtan Bomb videos, their chemistry was playful, easy, electric. As they matured, so did the tension. Concert clips circulated showing lingering embraces. V-Live streams were dissected frame by frame. A bracelet gifted, a hotel selfie, a lyric that felt too pointed. It all became fuel. For fans who believed these weren't coincidences, they were clues to something unspoken, something real. Of course, the members themselves never confirmed anything. They laughed with fans, acknowledged ships lightly, but set boundaries too. BTS always emphasized their brotherhood, their bond. But for many, Jungkook and Taehyung's dynamic felt like more than just friendship. It felt like a story told in silence. And Jungkook's silence on the matter, as always, only made the whispers louder. It wasn't just Taekook either. Jungkook has sparked similar speculation with other male idols, from moments on stage with male collaborators to quiet interactions behind the scenes. But none of them captured the global imagination quite like Taekook. Fans created entire archives, video essays, art collections, analyzing the way Jungkook's eyes softened around Taehyung. It wasn't about confirming queerness, it was about believing in connection. Yet, amid all the speculation, Jungkook remained still. He never addressed the rumors directly. He never confirmed, never denied. He simply focused on his work, on his growth, on showing love to ARMY in a way that felt safe, controlled, and deeply loyal. Because perhaps to him, some feelings don't belong to the public. Some emotions aren't for sale. In 2019, the narrative shifted temporarily when a blurry photo of Jungkook hugging a tattoo artist named Lee Mi-ju went viral. This time, the speculation leaned heteronormative. Was she his girlfriend? The internet erupted. The agency quickly responded, stating they were just friends. But even that story, saturated with clicks and chaos, faded. The mystery remained, not just of who Jungkook might be with, but of who he allows into his heart at all. He said before that his ideal type is someone kind, confident, and passionate about what they do. He's spoken of sincerity and independence. Not appearance, not status. He often tells ARMY they are the love of his life. That music is his truest relationship. That romance, if it exists, is something sacred, something private. And maybe that's the answer. Maybe Jungkook has loved deeply, quietly, even fearfully. Maybe he hasn't. Maybe Taekook is a beautiful friendship. Or maybe it's more. We don't know. And that's the point. Because in a world that demands every detail, Jungkook teaches something radical. That mystery is powerful. That intimacy is not content. That silence can be more revealing than words. So fans hold on to the moments, the music, the emotion. They believe what they want to believe. Not because they need answers, but because they feel something in the spaces between. And maybe, just maybe, that's where love lives best. In an industry that often rewards perfection over authenticity, Jungkook has become a rare kind of star. One who leads not by noise, but by nuance. His journey has never just been about music charts or magazine covers. It's been about something deeper. Something that speaks to the soul of a generation that craves truth more than spectacle. Jungkook didn't ask to be a symbol, but he became one anyway. Not just for South Korean excellence on the world stage, but for emotional honesty, for quiet resilience, and for the right to define oneself in a world that demands labels. Over time, he came to represent more than just a golden voice or a flawless performance. He came to represent a feeling of being seen, even when you say nothing, of being loved, even when you're still learning how to love yourself. It's no secret that Jungkook has inspired millions, but perhaps his most enduring legacy is how he's held space for those who feel different, for the misunderstood, for the ones who've questioned their place, their voice, their truth. In a global culture where LGBTQ+ identities are still too often silenced or sensationalized, Jungkook's presence, fluid, soft, intense, and never fully defined, became something quietly revolutionary. And if there was ever any doubt that Jungkook's heart beats beyond the stage, 2023 offered quiet proof. According to Seoul National University Children's Hospital, Jungkook personally donated 1 billion won, nearly $800,000, to support sick children fighting for their lives. No press release, no cameras, just a handwritten message. I hope this helps ease their pain and brings them a little joy, a little strength. It wasn't about headlines, it was about hope. And that's the kind of legacy no award can measure. Jungkook has never needed to raise a flag to show what he stands for. His kindness speaks louder than labels ever could. When he hugs his members without hesitation, when he sings of longing without gender, when he dances like he's shedding every expectation placed upon him, he redefines masculinity, fame, and freedom all at once. These quiet acts become louder than declarations. And in a world still struggling to embrace those who love differently, Jungkook simply lives differently. And that, too, is power. It's an invitation, a permission slip, a soft but steady voice saying, you're allowed to be exactly who you are and still be loved. He never declared himself a spokesperson for any movement. He didn't need to, because when someone like Jungkook expresses affection without fear, hugs another man on stage without flinching, sings about longing without specifying who it's for, that in itself becomes an act of courage. An act of solidarity, a whisper to every young fan, queer or questioning, You're not alone. You're not broken. You're allowed to exist. And the fans listened. For years, LGBTQ+ fans have found refuge in him, in his vulnerability, in his complexity, in his refusal to explain away his softness. They saw themselves in his layered masculinity, in the way he wore both tattoos and tenderness, in the way he danced like his body belonged to no one's expectation but his own, in the way he stayed silent when rumors swirled, not as avoidance but as quiet defiance. Because sometimes silence is survival, and sometimes it's grace. Through all of this, Jungkook became more than an idol. He became a mirror, not polished but powerful. A reminder that identity isn't always loud or labeled. Sometimes it's just lived. And then, just when the world was beginning to miss him the most, he returned. In early June 2025, after nearly 2 years of military service, Jungkook walked back into public life. No pyrotechnics, no choreographed rollout, just a man, standing tall, changed but familiar, eyes filled with calm. It wasn't just a comeback. It was a moment, a breath, a reunion. Fans gathered, online and in person, to welcome him home. They didn't cheer because he was famous. They cheered because he had endured, because he reminded them that growth doesn't always happen in the spotlight. Sometimes it happens in silence, in service, in stillness. And now, with the world once again watching, Jungkook is back. Stronger, bolder, and more beloved than ever. But more importantly, more himself. Because his story isn't over, it's evolving. And for every fan who's ever felt unseen, unheard, or unloved, his presence still says what words never could. You matter, you belong, you're allowed to dream. And so is he. Jungkook never stood on a podium waving a rainbow flag. He never declared himself a spokesperson for any movement. And yet, through the way he lives, he quietly challenges the traditional definitions of masculinity that dominate not only South Korean culture but the global stage. One moment he is a disciplined boxer, muscles taut and fierce. The next, he is cradling plush toys, humming softly to himself, his eyes tender and unguarded. For queer fans who have been told they must choose strong or soft, masculine or feminine, this or that, Jungkook's very existence offers something radical. The possibility of being both, of being everything, of being free. In K-pop, skinship between members is often dismissed as fan service, a playful performance for the cameras. But with Jungkook, it feels different. The way he hugs his members, tight, unhesitating, lingering, doesn't look staged. The way his eyes soften when he leans close to someone on stage feels real, uncalculated. For LGBTQ+ fans, these moments carry weight. They suggest a world where affection between men isn't forbidden, where tenderness isn't mocked, where love of any kind can simply exist without explanation. Jungkook doesn't reduce closeness to a joke. He normalizes it, and that normalization is quietly revolutionary. Listen closely to Jungkook's music. Whether it's the soaring optimism of Euphoria, the aching honesty of My Time, or the playful intimacy of Seven, there's a striking absence of gendered language. He sings about longing, devotion, desire, but never pins those emotions to a specific she or he. For queer fans, this neutrality matters. It makes his songs a mirror they can step into without erasing part of themselves. In Jungkook's world, love is love, heartbreak is heartbreak, desire is desire, and that universality turns his voice into something rare, a safe space and sound. Perhaps the most profound way Jungkook connects with the LGBTQ+ community is not through what he says, but through what he doesn't. Over the years, rumors have swirled around him, whispers of relationships with both women and men, endless speculation about Taekook, and fan-created archives dissecting every glance, every lyric, every gesture. Jungkook never confirmed, never denied. He simply remained still. In a world obsessed with answers, his silence became a shield. For some, it was frustrating. For others, it was liberating. Because silence, too, can speak. It can mean, I don't owe anyone an explanation, and neither do you. Representation often comes with grand speeches, bold campaigns, or public declarations. But Jungkook's version is subtler, and perhaps more accessible. When he embraces softness without shame, when he sings about love without gender, when he stands close to another man on stage without flinching, he creates space. Space for young fans questioning their identity. Space for those who've been told they don't belong. Space for love that doesn't fit the boxes society tries to enforce. His message isn't loud, but it's consistent. You don't have to declare yourself to be yourself. For LGBTQ+ fans around the world, Jungkook has become more than an idol. He has become a mirror, a reflection not of perfection, but of possibility. His tattoos and piercings whisper rebellion, but his soft laugh and shy habits reveal tenderness. He is both rebel and romantic, global star and ordinary man. That paradox, that refusal to be reduced, resonates deeply with anyone who has been told they are too much of one thing or not enough of another. In Jungkook's contradictions, queer fans see their own complexity reflected back at them and accepted. It's not only Jungkook who gives back to the LGBTQ+ community, but the community that finds strength in him. Online, countless queer armies share stories of how his music gave them courage to come out, or how his silence made them feel less pressured to define themselves. Fan art, essays, and videos transform Taekook moments into symbols of love that transcends labels. For many, following Jungkook isn't just about standing an idol. It's about finding family, belonging, and the assurance that they are not alone. In the end, Jungkook may never define himself publicly. He may never speak directly about sexuality or identity. But perhaps that's the point. His impact doesn't come from declarations, it comes from living authentically, without apology, without shame. In a world that still silences LGBTQ+ voices, Jungkook's quiet defiance, his refusal to conform, and his unapologetic tenderness become revolutionary acts. He shows that softness is strength, that silence can be power, that identity is not always about what you announce, sometimes it's about what you embody. And for the millions who watch him, listen to him, and find themselves reflected in his presence, Jungkook's story is not just about music, fame, or even mystery. It's about belonging. It's about freedom. It's about the radical reminder that you are allowed to exist exactly as you are and still be loved. What if Jungkook's silence was never about hiding, but protecting something sacred? His story isn't just about fame, it's about identity, resilience, and quiet defiance. In a world that demands answers, he chose authenticity, and in doing so, he gave hope to millions, especially the LGBTQ+ community. Drop your thoughts, subscribe, share this story. Someone out there needs it. The hug that shook the world happened in Seoul. Not a scandal, not a headline, just BTS's RM opening his arms, and history was made. Why did one simple hug spread across continents, spark debates, and touch millions of hearts? Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, you'll see why this single moment became more than news. It became a symbol, a turning point. On September 6, 2025 in Seoul, the Frieze Art Fair opened under a magical night sky. Critics, collectors, celebrities, and spectators gathered, waiting for something extraordinary. The hall was resplendent with masterpieces, towering sculptures, but the real highlight was not on the walls or pedestals. It was in a single human moment. Kim Namjoon, RM, leader of BTS, stood silently amid the storm of flashbulbs and whispers. For years, he had been the face of global music, the voice of a generation, a soul weaving art and philosophy into sound and life. And then, as the cameras rolled and the room held its breath, he leaned forward and hugged Minhyun. A hug, warm, sincere, fleeting, but meaningful. The crowd was stunned. For a moment there was an eerie silence, then gasps, thunderous applause, and the relentless click of cameras capturing the historic moment. In an instant, the image had spread around the world. From Seoul to New York, Tokyo to Paris, São Paulo to Cairo. Twitter exploded with trends, Instagram was flooded with reposts, and headlines in every language proclaimed RM's hug that shook the world. But why? Why does a simple hug resonate around the world? Idols bow, wave, and pose for cameras every day. Yet, in the sacred space of Free's soul, a sanctuary of distance, prestige, and silent reverence, RM broke the unspoken curse. In that moment, a hug was no longer a simple gesture. It became a break with formality, a gentle challenge, blurring the lines between art and artist, between celebrity and human, between what is expected and what is fearlessly true. When was the last time you felt a simple act carry such weight? Do you remember a hug that changed the way you thought about someone or even a relationship? Think about it and share your answer in the comments. Because maybe, just maybe, this hug wasn't just RM's moment. It might remind you of your own. This is RM, a man who has stood before the United Nations and spoken about self-love, who has filled stadiums with millions of voices, who has wandered through museums, collected art, and immersed himself in cultures far beyond music. That hug was not the impulse of someone unaware of its weight. For Namjoon, every gesture carries meaning, or at the very least, invites interpretation. And so one wonders, in that fleeting moment, wasn't he turning life itself into a living work of art? Think about the symbolism. Art fairs are built on distance. You stand in front of a painting, but don't touch it. You walk around a sculpture, but don't hold it. But with a simple gesture, RM breaks that barrier. He's no longer distant, he's closer. He reaches out, he embraces, he reminds us all that art is at its core about connection, not separation. Perhaps he's asking, shouldn't art be lived, breathed, and felt, instead of locked away behind glass? And it did. In Seoul, pride surged. In New York, critics argued over its meaning. In Paris, the clip played on repeat, every glance and gesture scrutinized. In São Paulo and Buenos Aires, fans argued all night long. Was it friendship, love, or something greater? From Manila to Nairobi, Cairo to London, the moment became a refrain shared by the world. Where were you when you first saw it? Where in the world did the image find you? And how did it resonate with you? Did it make you proud, overwhelm you, inspire you, or stir confusion as you searched for its meaning? Share your feelings, because this moment is no longer mine. It belongs to all of us, a story unfolding across continents in real time. And here's what makes it so compelling. For some, the hug was simply a polite greeting. For others, it was a statement, a bold move in an environment defined by rules and images. But whether by design or instinct, the gesture triggered something powerful. It made people speak. It made people feel. And in a world filled with scripted performances and rehearsed gestures, authenticity is the rarest and most precious art. Think about it. Aren't we all looking for something real? Those moments that are unscripted, unpolished, undeniably human? That's why this matters. Because in that fleeting embrace, RM is not just an idol, not just an icon. He's simply a human being. And there's something both astonishing and breathtaking about that raw authenticity. So let me ask you, was that hug a meticulous brushstroke on RM's living canvas? Or was it simply an instinctive moment, two souls meeting naturally? That's the mystery we're starting with. But that's just the beginning. Next we'll dig deeper. Why Free's soul? Why Minihan? And why did this moment shake the world with a single act of connection? Stick with me, because what happened next was so much more than a hug. There's a moment in global music history that still thrills when you look back. The frontman of the world's biggest boy band, standing at the podium of the United Nations, his voice steady, his message clear. RM, his sincerity radiating from every word, declares, no matter who you are, where you're from, your skin color, your gender identity, speak yourself. It wasn't just a celebrity speech, it was an invitation to millions to embrace themselves, unabashedly. And in that moment, the music industry transformed into something much more powerful, a global conversation about self-worth and identity. But let's rewind a bit. Have you ever really listened to the lyrics of Trivia Love or Intro Persona? RM isn't just arranging words, he's peeling back layers of identity, of self-awareness, of the courage it takes to embrace difference. Ask yourself, when was the last time you stopped and asked, who am I underneath all the roles I play every day? These songs are more than just background music. They take us deep inside, to parts of ourselves we often ignore. And perhaps that's their quiet gift. Through his lyrics, he opens up a space where we can be vulnerable, but also learn to accept ourselves for who we are. Trivia. Love may sound light at first, but listen closely and you'll realize it's a meditation on how love defines existence. RM wants us to ponder, is love simply a word, or is it the foundation of who we are? Intro Persona, on the other hand, opens with a raw vulnerability. Who am I? It's not a question celebrities are usually willing to ask in public, yet RM built an entire performance around it. Isn't it interesting that at the height of his fame, instead of portraying perfection, he chose to portray imperfection? That honesty shocks us in the best way possible, because it reminds us that even global icons struggle with identity, just like we do. And then there's the Love Yourself campaign in partnership with UNICEF. Think about the scale. A global artist using her voice not for profit or image, but for compassion, leading young people to self-acceptance. What makes this campaign so powerful is that Love Yourself isn't a platitude on a billboard. It's a call to action. Look closer, and the message resonates far more broadly, embracing diversity in all its forms. Even those whose stories are often overlooked, like the LGBTQ+ community. So stop for a moment. What does loving yourself mean to you? Is it confidence, healing, or simply the courage to be your authentic self? Fans around the world remember the UN speech as a turning point. For some, it was the first time they heard a K-pop idol speak openly about gender identity and equality on such a big stage. For others, it was a sense of recognition that someone with global influence had finally said what they'd been waiting for. Close your eyes for a second and imagine yourself as a young fan, sitting in front of a screen, hearing a global figure say, "Love yourself, speak yourself." What would that have evoked in you? Amazement, inspiration, or perhaps wonder at seeing such truth spoken for the first time? 6 years later, RM is no longer on the podium, but in the avant-garde walls of Free's Seoul. The scene has changed, the atmosphere is completely different, but the belief he carries remains unchanged. What is remarkable is that his message has not faded from memory. Instead, it has transformed into action, as demonstrated by his engagement with art and culture. Movement has become expression, principle has become reality. And this begs the question, can art move the world as powerfully as words, or even more so? And perhaps that's what's so shocking. While the world expects idols to be confined to the music charts, RM has stepped out, blurring the lines between art, activism, and leadership. Isn't that what makes his journey so memorable? His actions show us that self-love is not just about accepting yourself. It extends outward towards embracing the diversity of the world around you. It's a reminder that identity isn't a boundary. It's a bridge. When RM talks about self-love and diversity, is it tied to music or something bigger, almost a movement? That's what makes his journey so remarkable. Proof that pop culture, when led by courage, can spark conversations that politics often can't. So tell me, which resonates with you the most? Love, identity, or the courage to speak up? Before we move on to the next of his story, let me ask you this. Where are you listening from? And how has RM's music impacted you? Because as we dig deeper, this conversation isn't just about him. It's about all of us finding the courage to love ourselves and celebrate diversity together. And as you ponder your own answers, let's move on to the next part of RM's journey, where the story only gets more compelling. Fashion is often seen as a mirror. It reflects culture, tradition, identity, and sometimes even rebellion. For BTS leader RM, fashion is more than just clothing. It has become a language, a statement, even a revolution disguised in fabric. When he steps out in long dresses, oversized coats, and genderless accessories, he's not just experimenting with style. He's quietly rewriting the rules of who wears what and why. It's a bold move, especially on the world stage, where every camera is waiting, every step is being recorded. Think about it. How many times has society tried to box fashion into rigid boxes? Yet RM stands tall, moving freely across those boundaries as if they never existed. Without a word, he reminds us, fashion has no borders, gender has no limits. Can you feel the power of that message? Have you ever worn something that truly felt free? Not just stylish, not just comfortable, but free in a way that touched your soul? Share your story in the comments. Your voice is part of this conversation. Western media has recognized this aspect of RM. Time and time again, magazines and cultural critics have called him a genderless fashion icon. It's not a frivolous title. It's recognition of a global star who dares to go beyond expectations, to show the world that true influence lies not in conformity, but in creativity. He doesn't simply follow fashion trends, he creates them. Every outfit he chooses says something new, and the world listens. Doesn't it make you wonder, how can a man start global conversations just by choosing an outfit? And the impact isn't just visual. Imagine being a teenager in a conservative town, scrolling through photos of RM in a flowing gown or a genderless suit. Suddenly you realize you're not alone. Suddenly you see someone demonstrating that identity doesn't have to be constrained. Does that change the way you see yourself? Does that spark something inside you? Now let's step into a specific moment. Freeze Seoul, Asia's largest art fair. The atmosphere is filled with creativity, with the energy of artists from all over the world. RM enters that space. He doesn't need to flaunt himself. His presence alone is enough. He's not there just as a musician or a celebrity. He was there as a living statement of equality and openness. Imagine the room, the looks, the whispers, the silent nods of respect. If you were there, how would you react? Would you be stunned with awe, or would you stand up and applaud? Moments like these demonstrate an important point. Fashion is not decoration, it is communication. Every outfit RM wears is a statement. Every accessory is a punctuation mark. A ring becomes a question mark. Why can't men wear this? A dress becomes an exclamation mark. Look, it belongs to everyone. Isn't it interesting how clothes in his hands become a story told to millions? The wave spread across continents. In Brazil, a fan dared to try a bold new look because RM proved it was possible. In New York, a young designer sketched a collection inspired by his style. In Europe, a student wrote an essay about gender identity after seeing his photos. In South Korea, a fan felt a little braver about accepting herself. Through RM, fashion became more than just clothing. It became a spark, a chain reaction of courage. Has someone's style ever made you do something different, to see yourself in a new light? And history reminds us he's not the first. Icons like David Bowie, Prince, or the pioneering designers from Japan also blurred the lines. But RM brings something new. He stands at the crossroads of art, music, fashion, and cultural diplomacy. He represents not just himself, but a generation, an Asia that is rising with confidence and creativity. Don't you think that's extraordinary? What really sets RM apart is the grace with which he makes his choices. Not loud, not forced, deliberate and refined. He doesn't seek the spotlight, but his presence commands attention. Every glance, every gesture is a quiet declaration that the future is here. He wears his freedom like it's part of his very being, effortlessly. And that's why the world is in awe. He's more than a fashion icon, he's a revolutionary spirit, dressed in elegance. When you look at RM, do you see just an artist or a leader quietly shouldering the burden of changing culture? That's the power of his story. In his hands, fashion is never frivolous. It becomes a language. It becomes courage, expressed clearly. And here's the truth. This story doesn't end on the runway or in front of the camera. It continues in you, in me, in everyone watching. Because when RM dares to wear freedom, he gives us permission to do the same. Maybe you're in New York. Maybe you're in Manila. Maybe you're in Buenos Aires. Wherever you are, your perspective matters. So tell me, where are you watching from? And how does an RM story make you feel about your own freedom of self-expression? Because this goes beyond fashion. It's a conversation shared across the world. As we move into the next of RM's journey, remember, RM's story doesn't belong to him alone. It belongs to all of us. So, are you ready to join me? Seoul was abuzz with energy that night, lit not only by neon lights, but also by the anticipation of one of the most dazzling cultural events of the year, Art Paradise Night at Freeze Seoul 2025. The atmosphere was electric. Visionary artists, global innovators, and iconic figures all gathered in a single space. Lights flashed, voices whispered into recorders, and just outside the doors, fans held their breath in anticipation of the moments that would soon be shared around the world. And then, amid it all, came the moment no one could have predicted, but everyone would remember forever. RM, the leader of BTS, a man known not only for his music but also for his wisdom and thoughtfulness, stepped forward. He welcomed familiar and new faces, his calm confidence shining through a room filled with power and influence. But what happened next transformed the night into something much bigger than an art event. RM walked towards Minnie Han, the first transgender woman to win Miss International Queen, an icon of courage, beauty, and change. Their eyes met. The world stopped. And in that moment, RM opened his arms, and Minnie Han stepped in for a hug that shocked, inspired, and sparked conversations everywhere. This wasn't just a hug, it was history in the making. Within an hour, Twitter exploded. Hashtags about RM and Minnie Han quickly rose to the top of global trends. An iconic moment for the LGBT community, the international media called it. Newspapers from New York to London, from Tokyo to São Paulo, carried the image on their front pages. Commentators, cultural critics, and fans have debated, praised, and analyzed what this means not just for K-pop, but for global representation and unity. But pause for a moment. What do you think? If you were witnessing the moment live, how would you feel? Surprised, proud, or perhaps deeply moved? Share in the comments because your perspective matters here. Audience reactions have been as varied as those watching. BTS's loyal fanbase, ARMY, flooded social media with pride, writing sentiments like, "This is why we love Namjoon. He leads with courage." Members of the LGBTQ+ community have expressed their gratitude, with many admitting that they've never seen someone as globally influential as RM publicly embrace a character like Minnie Han before. "I felt seen," one fan wrote. "I felt safe." But, as usual, the internet had its share of skeptics. Netizens argued, debated, even criticized. Some called it a publicity stunt, while others questioned why a hug could stir up such strong emotions. And isn't that the real question? When such a simple act, a hug, can stir up such a firestorm, what does that say about our world today? What does it say about the power of a man, an artist, to choose to stand with humanity, regardless of boundaries? This is more than a hug. It's a message, a declaration, a promise. I stand with you. Think about the timing of this moment. Freeze Seoul is not just an art fair. It's a cultural melting pot, a gathering of the global creative elite. And in that environment, RM's Mini Han's reception was amplified beyond imagination. Imagine yourself in that auditorium. The music blared, the lights changed, the crowd murmured in anticipation. And then you witnessed a scene that no one could have scripted. Isn't it funny how the unscripted moments become the ones we never forget? International pundits were quick to chime in. Some cultural commentators described RM's move as a watershed moment for Asian pop culture. Others said it redefined how idols are viewed in a region still grappling with acceptance and identity. The significance? Huge. An article in The Guardian even suggested that RM had expanded the definition of what it means to be a global artist. Do you agree with that? Or do you think it was something more personal, just a moment of humanity rising above fame? When you think about your life, has there ever been a small gesture, a simple act of support that changed everything for you? Maybe it was a word of encouragement from a teacher, a hug from a friend, or even a smile from a stranger. If so, you know the power of what RM did that night. It wasn't about fame. It wasn't about showmanship. It was about expressing humanity in its purest form. As we continue the story, keep that image in mind. The hug wasn't the end. It was the spark. And the fire it ignited continues to burn, reshaping conversations about art, identity, and the role of global icons in advocating for change. When BTS leader RM hugged a transgender icon in the heart of Seoul, the world stopped. For countless members of the global LGBTQ+ community, it was more than just a hug. It was a signal, a clear affirmation from one of the world's most influential voices. And in that moment, fans who had long felt overlooked began whispering with relief and pride. Finally, we're seen. Finally, we're recognized. And think about it. How often does a mainstream artist dare to stand up like that? Names like Elton John, Lady Gaga, Harry Styles come to mind, cultural pioneers who turned their art into acts. And now RM has joined that lineage. Isn't that amazing? A rapper-songwriter from South Korea, a country still grappling with its age-old traditions, now standing alongside these Western icons. Can you feel the weight of that moment? Let me ask you this. Where are you watching this from? Leave a comment. Because whether you're in New York, São Paulo, Manila, or Paris, this moment has gone viral. Fans across continents have shared clips, translated headlines, and debated the meaning behind what quickly became known as the hug that shook the world. But pause for a moment. What does this mean back home? South Korea remains a deeply traditional society, and conversations about LGBTQ+ rights are often sidelined. An artist of RM's stature publicly embracing a transgender woman, right in Seoul on camera, is more than just a headline. It's a cultural shock. Many praised his boldness, calling it a defining moment. Others were uncomfortable, questioning why a beloved K-pop star would step into such territory. But isn't that the nature of progress? Change rarely comes without causing uncertainty. When you first saw the clip, what occurred to you? Surprise, pride, hesitation? Share it, because those sentiments matter. They reflect conversations happening around the world. For young fans in Korea, many began to ask, if RM can represent acceptance, why can't our society? That question was powerful. It was the seed of change. This hug sparked something much bigger than a fleeting hashtag. It opened up a conversation. Is it time to celebrate LGBTQ+ voices more fully in K-pop and Korean society? Think about it. K-pop has always thrived on pushing creative boundaries through its music, its visuals, and its culture itself. Yet when it comes to LGBTQ+ representation, the stage is often silent. With a single gesture, RM blew that silence away, turning it into a conversation. So here's what I'm asking. Should art simply be entertainment? Or should it also have the courage to inspire change? I'd love to hear your thoughts, because the answer could be as varied as the culture we live in. International journalists have covered this story. Major news outlets in the US, Europe, and Latin America covered the story with headlines like BTS leader sparks LGBTQ+ rights debate and the hug that shook the world. Suddenly, RM wasn't just a musician. He was a cultural ambassador, whether he intended to or not. Icons matter. In every era, there have been figures whose actions resonated far beyond their original intentions. Think of Lady Gaga speaking out in support of marriage equality, or Harry Styles wearing a dress on stage. These weren't just personal choices. They became cultural moments that changed public perception. In this performance alone, RM became such an icon. He represented courage in the face of tradition, compassion in the face of division, and presence in the face of silence. And the world recognized it. Do you think RM meant for this hug to carry such weight? Or do you think it was simply a spontaneous act of kindness that the world wanted to spread? There's no right or wrong answer, but your perspective matters. Ultimately, whether celebrated or condemned, the hug was a turning point. It showed us that sometimes the smallest gestures, a touch, an embrace, can resonate across cultures and borders with incredible power. That's why the press called it the hug that shook the world. We often think of cultural icons as big moments, a concert, a protest, a speech. But what if real change starts with something as simple and as human as a hug? Stay tuned, because in the next, we'll take a closer look. What happened to RM after that? How did this moment reshape his image, his career, and his relationship with fans around the world? You won't want to miss it. But before we go any further, I want to hear from you guys. Do you consider this hug a true turning point for K-pop, or just a fleeting flash in the pan? Share your thoughts in the comments, because your voice is part of this journey. And together, we'll explore how a simple act can spread, inspiring a community far beyond the stage. What makes the world stop for a second? Not the endless noise of speeches, not the blinding chaos of lights. What really stops us, what freezes time, is a single act that carries the weight of truth. RM, the leader of BTS, understands this better than anyone. He doesn't rely on long statements or slogans. Instead, he makes his impact through art, through fashion, and most memorably, through an unforgettable hug. That hug wasn't staged. It wasn't polished by a PR team or covered in layers of explanation. It was raw, it was human, and it was shocking. Not because it was loud, but because it was sincere. Stop and think. How many words pass by each day? Speeches disappear, lectures fade from memory. But a single action, an image etched in time, can last far beyond the present moment. RM seems to understand this instinctively. History is not written in ink. Sometimes it is written in silence. Sometimes it is carried in the simple embrace of another soul. For the LGBT community, that gesture is powerful. Imagine waiting your whole life to be seen, then witnessing a global superstar, someone celebrated by millions, acknowledge you without judgment, without hesitation. RM didn't just say, "I support you." His presence, his embrace, whispered something deeper. You are seen, you are worthy, you are loved. When you first witnessed that moment, how did you feel? Did you feel lighter, stronger, maybe even less alone? I want to know what emotions welled up inside you when you realized that someone on the world stage was finally looking your way. But was not limited to one community. It echoed throughout South Korea. A country known for its deep traditions and cultural conservatism was suddenly at the center of a global conversation. RM, once simply a national idol, was no longer bound by that role. He became something more. A figure who challenged the boundaries of what Korean culture could represent to the world. To my Korean audience, let me ask you directly, did this moment make you feel proud? Did it feel like a challenge? Did it make you realize that South Korea exports more than just music, but also values of inclusion and progress? Share your thoughts, because your perspective matters to this story. Here's a surprising truth. We often think of lasting impact as the result of decades of effort, through statues, memorials, or libraries built in someone's honor. But RM showed us that meaning can come in a single breath, a single heartbeat, a single action. That's the paradox of impact. Sometimes it doesn't take 1,000 steps, just one, if taken in the right direction. Do you believe that a single moment can truly change the course of history? Or do you think that transformation always requires a lifetime of persistence? Which side of that question do you stand on? RM's actions remind us that influence doesn't always come as a surprise. Sometimes it comes so quietly that the world has to lean forward to hear it. What he brings is not a loud nor a staged performance. It's a quiet courage, a gentle affirmation of the simple value of being human. And when we look back today, we see more than a superstar. We see a bridge between a younger generation hungry for progress and an older generation clinging to tradition. A bridge between Korea and the rest of the world. A bridge between those who feel at home and those who have waited to belong. Maybe that's why it resonates so deeply, because that hug wasn't just for two people. It was for all of us. It was about connection, about breaking down invisible walls, about daring to believe in a world where love and acceptance aren't privileges but birthrights. And if one hug can spark that kind of hope, imagine what countless acts of kindness, yours, mine, ours, can do. So let's keep this going, because the story doesn't end here. It starts with us. Thank you so much for staying until the end. RM's hug wasn't just a moment, it was a message that connection, courage, and love can truly change the world. So tell me, what did this story spark in you? Share your thoughts below, because your voice matters in this conversation. And if this touched you, don't just subscribe, share this video so more people can feel the same spark. I'll see you in the next story, where we uncover another moment that changed the world in ways